Some things are very hard to acquire, but I like this sound. And I feel like this is a very simple sound to have. You ain't gotta have anybody else. It's just you stepping outside and letting nature speak. I haven't gotten as good as my cousin yet. She says she can distinguish each bird's chirp, and I think that's a unique skill in itself. It shows that she's able to be at peace and recognize different things while she's out here. At some place I'm trying to get to at some point. At times we can be, distracted with a whole lot of noise and different things. But this is something I always seek, whether it's going to stand by a creek somewhere, a river, some type of body of water to hear that water rushing and crashing and different things like that is nothing like, the sounds of nature. It's so peaceful. And so, at times, I have had underappreciation for these points in my life. Um, rushing to get to things, rushing to try to make things happen, which has led to, several mistakes. But, I'm grateful for everything that I've experienced because it's helped me develop more patience and, get to know myself a lot more, get to know the different things that I have to work on as an individual. And, I've did my best to work on those things. And so it's always good to be in that isolation state, that peaceful state, to be able to hear your own thoughts. And that's something I feel like a lot of people are afraid of, in my opinion, being able to sit and dwell with their own thoughts at times. And if I'm being honest, that is something that I've definitely struggled with um, in more recent years. And not because I'm afraid of my sins or different things, but um, just wanting to be in the mix at times with what's going on online. And so, for my sake and my mental health sake, I've learned to take, little breaks from posting and different things, uninstalling apps if I have to. Um, and that really helps me get to where I need to be. Uh, and so, don't take these moments for granted or anything. And there's, as I've said before, some people, that have been counting on me being miserable in different things, counting on me, coming into agreement with different words that they have said concerning me and, my happiness or whatever it may be. But, I'm learning to, number one, trust in God, um, have peace, get in this state as much as possible. You got to read your word. You got to be washed by the word, because the word is going to help you with the direction of your thoughts. If you doing things like watching TV and different things, and you're not filling yourself with the word, um, there's no way that God can correct you and edify you with certain things. Um, I'm not saying He won't at all, but naturally, the more that you feed on, the more that you eat a particular thing, the more that you're going to think on that thing. And so, don't leave it up to, your body to just feed you, signals from the Most High. You have to get into His Word. Um, and that's definitely a skill that you should be working on within your isolation season. As I was just saying, some people, they want you to be miserable within this state. They want you to come into different uh, agreements with their assessments on your life. I remember some time back, I had some family like, well, how come this friend or that friend doesn't talk to you? And not really knowing. Now, while I did take accountability, knowing that, I am the common denominator in these situations. And that's where you don't gaslight yourself or anything. You don't um, put yourself above correction just because you may recognize that, some people may have had, a wrong motive or, a wrong idea about you for whatever reason it may be. But you don't want to disregard your role in it, because it always takes two to have a misunderstanding. And, you always have to analyze your part within it. But just thinking back to a particular scenario with my friend, um, you know, like I said, I had different people mocking me about not having these people around anymore. And a lot of times we got into arguments, or not arguments, but disagreements about, things of God. And I was okay with that division. And I was okay with standing on things. There was, I think I admitted this on my Facebook several different times. There were times that, I didn't do things right. Um, I would get upset when bringing out certain things, feeling like people were, being diligent. I wasn't being patient with certain things, nor was I being understanding of, their perspective as I should have. And, I can honestly say my experiences over the past 3 years have really helped my growth in that department. And I'm thankful for everybody who had you know, a spot in helping me grow in that, whether they were on the good side or the bad side of it. But, you know, I definitely had issues with how I would respond to things, because, just some of the things that would be brought to me would be like, well, you didn't look into that at all on your own. And it's almost like you're purposely trying to fight against anything that I'm saying for whatever reason. And so if that's the case, I would rather you got the Bible now. I would rather you learn what, you know, you're trying to learn. But as long as you got that Bible, as long as you're talking to God, that's all I care about. And, my friend, he had an understanding of that. He just was like, well, I just feel like we are on two different paths with this. And I was like, you quite possibly right, but it's really only one path. Um, and I think, speaking to him more recently about that conversation that we had, we both understand each other a little bit more. Um, and I was able to express to him that, I wasn't showing a certain level of maturity that I need to in speaking to him about certain things. But even with losing other friends that I had in different things for different reasons, whether it was business ventures that we had disagreements on, whatever it may be, um, I was okay at the end, because I know that a lot of it was based on um, different faith-based things, and that we were going in two different directions. And people, I think people were also seeing me um, in conflict and struggles with, my old lifestyle at the times, which didn't really help. And so, um, going through relationship things, smoking weed heavy, doing all these different things, it didn't help my witnesses as well. And I had to be, mature enough to recognize everything that I was doing wrong within those seasons, and not just point to it as, people trying to fight against me or whatever. Even though the information may be valid, uh, what a person looks at or is looking at matters. And, that's the reason why things are very tricky nowadays. It's almost like you can clean yourself up really good and speak eloquently about a certain subject, and people just co-sign it. And at times that's dangerous. But on the flip side of it, you do have to have certain things on the outward, um, going for you, it seems, or certain people will not. Um, the things that you're trying to communicate won't be readily accepted. And so, going through these trials is something that I'm grateful for, to be honest. It does get lonely at times, but when I look at certain things and I see, what could be a possible outcome out of a particular situation, um, it helps me to have more peace on waiting. It helps me to grow more confident in the times in which, I was like, well, I should have did this, I should have did that. Instead of just thinking that I should have did that and beating myself up like I would in my younger days, I just do it the next time. And, that's called growth and maturity. And so I always take in, the peaceful seasons, um, like you need to, correct yourself. Um, Whether you struggle with anger, it might not be, you were trying to witness like I was, and still struggling with certain things. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's just a certain way that you talk to people or communicate. Um, and everybody says these things, but you know, it, if you're not alone and you have other people trying to confirm certain things about you, you can miss certain things that you may actually have to work on. So that makes me grateful for these seasons. Something else I was meditating on while being out here. Peace.